Unfiltered opinions.
Sometimes you have ideas and you're not quite sure why.
Secure the bag.
Sometimes you meet people and realize there's probably a reason why you stayed in touch.
Just listen.
Sometimes all the pieces just come together by themselves.
I'm Jimmy Moyaha.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
In our deep dive this week, we are diving into the world of pet insurance. We've just had a very tough conversation around the war and what wars mean for trades, investments, geopolitical movements, markets, and all sorts of things. And so we need to look at lighthearted things. We're going to be taking a look at how to protect the puppies, because puppies are important and we like puppies. Pet insurance has been something that not a lot of people have thought about, and I guess it depends on different life circumstances and all of that. And we know a couple of people that have very serious relationships with their pets. The likes of Pietri Redlinges, founder at Herenia, usual suspect on our show. Shout out to Pietri, we miss you. Come visit us sometime. Pietri has some birds, and he absolutely adores his birds. And that's someone I can think of that would have something like pet insurance, right? But also anyone that has a dog, a cat, whatever it is that you have in the form of a pet, there's an entire market out there for pet insurance.
There is, and pets are got expensive. So a story recently, my sister, who has a lot of cats, one of them fell off a roof.
Oh,
30,000 rand.
the cat didn't land on its feet?
Yeah.
I thought that was a thing with cats.
Broke it 3 times. Multiple compound fracture of the right or left leg.
Someone should tell the cat it's running out of lives.
I think it's out. I think that was life number 9. But there is huge expense. And then, so then I wrote about it to my newsletter, and there were a lot of folks who were like, yeah, but also read the T's and C's.
Yes.
And that's part of the point. So, I mean, then it comes back to, do you self-insure? So then my sister's all over. So weirdly, she had signed up at the vet like a month before for a trial and stuff. And so she actually got some money back. But for her to cover, and she's got 4 or 5 cats and a dog. The chickens are gone. So it's just 4 or 5 cats and a dog. For her to insure all of those is going to cost her a pretty penny. So then it comes in, well, how often do you submit claims and the like? But then the flip to, so you know, can you afford to self-insure and etc.?
What does self-insure mean? What
Well,
do you mean
basically,
by that?
instead of spending 1,000 rand a month doing pet insurance for 5 cats and a dog, put that into a savings account. And
Okay.
after 2.5 years, you've got 30,000. Except someone then emailed me, replied to my newsletter and said, our pet costs 86,000. Younger.
So the one thing I've learned about the pets is the more bizarre the injury or the service required, the more expensive it is. Especially if you've got rare breeds or pure breeds or anything of that nature. To then go in and do something as simple as an MRI or something as simple as some treatment for whatever it is, you don't know, right? So vets charge you for the consultation. They charge you for the scan. They charge you to tell you how they're going to fix the problem. Then after that, they still tell you it might not guarantee the fix.
Yes.
Which is effectively how doctors charge humans and everything as well. But at least with the human, you can then have a conversation with the human and say, do we have the surgery? What kind of conversation do you have with your pet?
Well, you don't, right? The question is, do we put you down or not?
How much do we... It's not even about how much do we love you. It's, does it make financial sense at some point, right? Because some of these things...
Can you have
82,000.
that? Can you have that? My sister, there was no conversation about can we afford it.
Yes.
I think there should have been, but maybe I'm a cold-hearted bastard big brother. I mean, who knows? But I kept saying, like, where's the conversation? Like this is a sweet little cat and all, and it's very pretty, but 30,000?
No, but so this is, I think it's less around the conversation being had and more around it highlighting how important pets are to people. How much people value the relationships they have
because
with
when
their
I was
pets.
a kid in the 80s, like 90s, there was no pet insurance.
No, there wasn't.
I remember our one cat broke its leg, got hit by a car, and we went and got a strapping on it. It didn't cost a lot because we had no money. Anyway, then we took that off. It turned out the other leg was also broken. But I mean, the cat was fine, inverted commas, but you know, still lived to be incredibly old. I mean, so how come we didn't have pet insurance in the 80s and 90s? How come you know why? Because we weren't doing MRIs on cats and CAT scans on cats and those sort of things. I mean, those just didn't exist. We've suddenly bought all of our fancy human healthcare and said, well, we can do this for animals too, without the conversation being, well, I might love my cat, my dog, my budgie, my goldfish, but How much? But here's a trick. So back to the actual read the T's and C's. Of that, however much money you're paying, a ridiculously large amount is going to admin and the agent, and very little is actually going to the insurance policy. But go check your medical aid and go check your home insurance. They will both probably have provisions for some level of pet insurance. Not paying 30,000, not paying 80,000, and there are T's and C's. Falling off a roof might not cover it, but your medical aid, my medical aid has pet insurance. Now, my cat hasn't left home except to go to the vet in years, but so there's no need to claim. And my sister's home insurance also had some cover. It didn't qualify; it was only if hit by a car, but
there was still cover. There was still cover there. So it's interesting from a pet insurance perspective. I think a lot of it, again, comes down to the conversations that are being had. For some people, no amount is too much. For some people, the emotional bond with your pet, there's no justification for the amount of money that you're spending there. For some people, you've heard the saying where people say pets are like your children, and you'll do anything for your children, and those conversations, pet owners out there genuinely feel that way. And we're not saying it's right or wrong, but the pet insurance thing is a big market, number one, for insurers that are starting to realize this. And if you're not even realizing it from an insurance perspective, look at it from a consumer perspective. The likes of Woolies and the ShopRite Group have gone out and bought pet businesses that have things around the pet foods, the pet industries, and all. Absolute Pets was an acquisition.
Including fragrances, candy floss fragrance for when you bath your pet. No, I kid you not. ShopRite sent me a box of pet stuff for International Pet Day. Candy floss fragrance for your cat or dog or something.
There we go, right? So it's not that this isn't an industry. It's, as you mentioned, Si, it's probably that we haven't explored it as much as we had, or we hadn't explored it as much in the past as we do now, and things have come a long way. That being said, let's look at the pet insurance side of it. You touched on the T's and C's. Make sure you're aware of the T's and C's. There is the option to self-insure from that perspective. There are other providers out there that can provide you with the pet insurance and all of that. I think the decision, much like any other insurance product, is how much coverage do you really want versus how much coverage can you really afford. So if you're looking at things like insuring your vehicle, you can insure at market value or at retail value. Unfortunately, we don't have a market value and a retail value for Barry the budgie, you know what I mean? So it becomes difficult to then kind of quantify, and I guess perhaps that's where all of the admin fees and things go into, is to say, how much pet insurance do we give you and how much premium do we charge you? And this must make actuaries' lives a living hell to try and figure out the risk associated with pets, understanding that they can't communicate, hey, I'm about to take a walk in a dangerous part of the neighborhood.
And then does it not maybe come down to, because to your point, I mean, I know people who have immigrated overseas, taken their dogs to the vet and put them down. Like, these were patently not part of the family type. If you're the sort of person who, when the bill for 80,000 Rand comes for your cat, or 30,000 for your budgie, or whatever it might be, if you're the sort of person who's going to be phoning your bank manager and saying, please, I need an extension on my credit card, then you need insurance. If you're the sort of person who's saying to the vet, hey, bull,
it's a lot.
Put it in the pot. Then maybe you don't, and it maybe that's the conversation that needs to be had. Now, I know, for example, so our cat's 15 years old, and that's all fine. There's no, when I say all fine, like she doesn't go out and etc. But if my wife and I got a new cat, the conversation my wife would be with, like, hell yeah, we're going to pay. And it's like, well, then we better get some pet insurance.
Okay, so
or self-insure.
So if we're getting pet insurance, does it cover exotic pets? Now, I say exotic because people out there,
I know that people
have
in the olden
snakes
days,
and tarantulas.
You had a cat or a dog. Now
That's
you
it.
have a cat, but it must be this cat or that cat, or it's a tarantula, or surely you don't pet insure a tarantula.
If you pet insure a python and it eats you, who gets paid out there? The python or you? Because who was the pet there? I have questions, right? Again, so
I have questions anyway, but yes.
But these are the considerations, right? Also, if we're talking exotics, let's talk about rare breeds, right? So let's go into rare breeds of things like parrots, rare breeds of dogs. You mentioned the cat. What is that? There's a particular cat, the Maine Coon. It's a cat known for its problems. It's known for having heart problems. It's known for having kidney problems. That inherently, I suppose, makes it a higher risk animal to insure because of its hereditary issues that it comes with, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you then take that pet, or you then have a pet like that, you inherently then say, I must have pet insurance, I suppose, because then you know that the costs are going to be high.
Yeah, I mean, like I've got this whole designer pet thing. Like I mean, it's become like when we were talking about luxury goods. Pets have become it's just weird. That's what I'm saying. People, it's weird.
It's
Just
weird.
Get a cat from the SPCA. Anyway, absent of that, I mean, if you're going and getting a designer pet, then insure it, because you're insuring your handbag. You're insuring. I mean, then insure it. Man.
And the other thing is as well is if you're getting a designer pet, that's what we're calling them, designer pets. Designer pets come with things that might not typically be covered, right? So your coverage might fall short. Then what? Is there a gap cover for pet insurance? Because now where are we going with this?
I mean, if there isn't, there will be in time, right? I mean, and what is this? This is insurance companies. We live in a zero growth environment. So how do insurance companies grow? Well, they got to steal from each other, steal clients from each other. Or they just come up with new, weird and wonderful ways to sell you in insurance. I mean, like medical aids are really bad at what they do. So what do? Don't worry, we'll sell you a gap cover. Well, why don't you just fix your medical aid? Why don't you make it?
Why don't you just cover it for what I'm paying you for?
A friend of mine had a baby. The medical aid only paid about 30% of the cost. And then the gap cover paid the rest. Fun fact, they're both the same company.
That's going to be a conversation for another deep dive, because that's something else that we should probably dig into there. But when we look at the pet side of it, I think the parting thought is exactly as you said, Sai. You hit the nail on the head with the fact that designer pets, love it, designer pets probably need insurance.
Yeah.
You should probably insure your designer
And
pet.
then when you get the insurance, read the T's and C's deep, get lots of quotes, really understand it. I mean, some of the numbers that were coming through were like what you're actually being covered for and the amounts and stuff. And on the sticker, it says, up to X amount of insurance. But when you look into the details, it's like, but it's capped here and it's capped there and
But this is the conversation that we had in our last episode when we were looking at the funeral insurance and we were looking at the funeral policies. It was down to the T's and C's. It was down to making sure that you are adequately covered, and that is where the insurance companies look as a default to not pay out a claim. So when you submit a claim, they say, hey, this doesn't line up with clause A, subsection B of page this on paragraph this or whatever, and therefore we're not going to pay it out, right? So if the insurers are putting in those clauses to protect themselves, you need to be well aware of those clauses and assess whether or not they line up with what it is that you're looking for, of course.
And here's a top tip. Assuming your vet doesn't sell, I remember in the days when a vet, all it did was do inoculations. Now the vet's like a grocery store for pets. Anyway, assuming your vet doesn't sell a pet insurance, ask them. Because they're the coalface. They've seen people come in. They've seen claims.
Right.
They understand. So it's the same with your doctor. I mean, if you want to buy a medical aid, my wife's had lots of conversations with medical practitioners saying, in your experience, which is the best? Now, there's T's and C's in terms of it, but they'll have perhaps a better sense and understanding than just phoning your current insurer and say, hey, stick me on with pets.
Well, to be fair, your insurer is incentivized to sell you a product without understanding
Correct.
your need for that product. Whereas your vet would then, as you say, have a better understanding of, hey, you have this type of cat prone to these type of ailments. This is probably what I've seen. Perhaps they might even draw on past experiences and say, this insurer particularly paid out well and those sorts of things.
Correct.
Which is why on our show, we tell you to seek the advice of the professionals in those spaces, because this, again, is not investment advice on pet insurance. It will never be investment advice on which pet insurance to get. And if you haven't noticed, we haven't even named a single insurance provider because we're not in the habit of doing that, right? So there are pet insurance things out there. Do your research, do your homework around it, speak to your vet about it. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the experiences, because perhaps you've had different experiences from a pet perspective. Perhaps pet insurance has saved your pet, and you would be without a pet by
In my
now.
sister's case, and it was just a broken leg,
Yeah.
but at 30,000.
30,000 rand broken leg. It's
I mean,
a lot for a broken leg.
So I smashed my leg in 11 places. It cost me 13 rand. Okay, I went to Grooteskier and it was the 80s, but still, I lied, the 90s. Anyway,
90s.
But a quick last thing. I ran the numbers of my sister. If she's self-insured, she would be ahead today. So if she was putting, instead of buying the insurance,
Yeah.
she was putting that premium into a little savings account every month. When that 30,000 rand bill came, she would have had well in excess of 30,000 rand in that account. Now, the risk is you get designer cat, pet, dog, goldfish, whatever, and on day 4,
That's it. I was just going to say. So your downside risk is you don't know when the injury is going to happen. And the cat's never going to tell you, or the dog's never going to tell you, hey, I swallowed a chew toy I shouldn't have swallowed, and now we need to go to the vet.
that was the fun thing. Another friend, the cat was very sickly and all, takes it off, scans everything, 3,500 rand bill, your cat's got indigestion.
There we go.
A Rennie's would have solved the
There
problem.
we go. But again,
But a cat
they
can't tell you.
And that's part of the problem. I think that's inherently part of the problem with the pet is you're so worried, you're trying to scenario plan for every possible scenario. You don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know if your cat has pre-existing conditions. You don't know what type of routine checkups you're taking your cat or dog for. And at the end of it, it was just a bad gummy or a bad whatever that they had, So, and you can't exactly go back and yell at the pet and say, well, you shouldn't have eaten that. Because whether you say that or not, they might just do it again.
They might just do it again.
Pet insurance, it's expensive. It makes no sense, but neither do designer pets. That's where we're going to leave the conversation. That's the deep dive. We're going to leave it on that note. We're going to get into investor insights. We're going to be taking a look at deepfakes and understanding how to safeguard against those and the implications of those. And we're also going to be taking a look at our war. Wrapping things up with investor insights, we're taking a look at the rise of deep fakes and what you need to be aware of. This is quite a tough topic because we don't really know where it starts and where it ends. It seems that this is just the beginning, and as artificial intelligence continues to advance, it seems this problem could become a real pain or a real nightmare. But nonetheless, I had a conversation this morning on SABC's Morning Live around deepfakes and just what happens.
You were up early.
Well, when you phone me, I'm up at the same time.
I know,
Really?
No. But I have to wake you. So I take that back. I don't wake you. You're already awake.
That's it, right? So, and again, I was watching the markets overnight anyway, and so, yeah. But the deepfake conversation is one that definitely isn't going to go away. If anything, it's getting scarier and scarier by the day because things are not only becoming more realistic, they're becoming harder to kind of detect in terms of whether or not something is real, something is authentic, something is fake. And every single time we do this, every single time we shoot the podcast, we talk, or everything that we do online is documented, which means we're giving some AI bot out there more information to synthesize and process and a better chance at them replicating or creating a deep fake.
100%. And what, as I was saying, what I can do in my $20 a month chat GPT with VO3 is insane, and I've got no skill. So imagine what the person with skill. There's a really, really simple response to how we deal with deep fake is don't believe anything you see until it comes from a verifiable source. And by verifiable source, I don't mean that it was definitely Jimmy's cousin's aunt 4 times removed offset in Pilanesberg. What I mean is like a mainstream media. Now, I know all the peeps out there, mainstream media. No, trust me, mainstream media is what's going to save your ass in this deep fake war, because what is happening is incredible. I expected a lot more of it in the US presidential election last year. We got frankly a small amount of it, but it's going to become more and more. And the problem is particularly on social media, people either support the view, in which case they don't care if it's fake or not, or they don't support the view, in which case they don't care if it's real or not. It's just that polarization. But what we are seeing in what is very early days is just ridiculous, and it's just going to get more so. And it means that, quite simply, we can't trust what we see with our own eyes, which is totally weird because, I mean, I remember when Photoshop was the scary thing and how they could change stuff. I mean, but that took a highly skilled individual and then how did they deliver it to me? They had to put it into a publication of a sort, etc. Now there's some kid with a $200 chat GPT sitting in the basement of his parents' house, no job, no prospect, and they can make whatever they want, and it is
it's terrifying is what it is. It is absolutely terrifying. And to your point, Si, around the fact that we didn't always have this, we didn't always live in this world of deep fakes, but they're becoming more and more advanced when you sit there and you see just what can be produced and what can come out of it. It leads you to believe, again, when you're saying look at verifiable sources. Someone told me something interesting about how sort of your scammers are now using deep fakes, right? People are getting quite clever in that I now know how to plant a phishing email and send a phishing email into a network, right? For the sake of this conversation, the phishing email goes into Anglo Platinum. It doesn't, we're not saying anything about Anglo's security system, but for argument's sake, it goes into there. It goes into a legitimate email address. One person in the entire business might click on it, and that gives the scammers or the hackers access to that mail network.
Yeah.
Then you pair that with a deepfake video from someone that would be a normal internal employee of Anglo, a high-ranking official, a CEO, an executive member that would be a trusted person. And now suddenly you're able to send out emails to a Jimmy and a Simon outside of the Anglo ecosystem from a verified Anglo email address, for example, using someone that would look like they would belong in that organization. So now how do you tell it apart? Because as you said, look for a verified source. That for me would be a verified source.
A friend of mine's a buff in cryptology and he's been involved in this for decades. And he used to do pen testing for certain businesses, penetrator testing 20 years ago. And like none of them even came close to passing. And that was 20 years ago. And it's small things. There was that CEO or the CFO who had a Zoom meeting with the CEO and transferred 25 million. And it wasn't the CEO. It was a deep fake. Or is this just them cleverly colluding to get $35 million? I mean, who knows? But that's just it. We don't even know if the deep fake is fake now. I mean, it's just, loop de loop. And it's just, to me, it's, like on my Twitters, I got my following section. So these are reasonably people I trust. And as soon as I go to the For You, I just assume it's all lies. Because, I mean, just start with that perspective. And then rather than, in the olden days, we believed you gave you benefit of the doubt. That's out the window now. That has to be out the window. Because to your point, you can get an email from a CEO of a listed company and it's not from them.
Yeah, but the deepfakes goes as well with the impersonations, right? We've spoken about this before. How many times a month do you get impersonated on one social platform and you can't shut down all of those accounts? And all someone really needs to do is move around an underscore, spell Simon Brown slightly differently, maybe with a capital S or a small s. And because we don't verify, because no one actually sits there and says, I'm going to go and check what Simon Brown's handle is or what which actual account belongs to Simon Brown, it's easy to then impersonate you and therefore easier to then create the deep fakes. The ones I've seen in terms of the impersonating accounts and the ones that I've shared with you from those individuals that have pretended to be you, someone follows me because you follow me and then immediately copies your videos as you have them on your timeline. And I am able to spot it, one, because I know you. I know the things you wouldn't post. I keep an eye. So I genuinely keep an eye on like average things, average followers. If your followers were in the 10,000s range and suddenly one morning your followers are at 300 or 400 or whatever, it's a new account. You know what I mean? But a lot of people don't think to look for these things. And that's part of the problem with the deepfake. That's part of why it creates such a big concern, because the red flags you're looking for, you don't even know which red flags to look for. And I guess perhaps let's do that. Let's see if we can get into some of the obvious red flags. The obvious red flags and we've stated this on the show before, is if someone is saying, here's an investment product, we need X amount of money for you to invest in, and that person happens to have a profile picture that looks like my face or Simon's face, it's not us. Don't give them money.
Yeah.
Just don't.
It's also financial products are generally, oftentimes they are sold, but they're not sold in DMs.
That's it.
They sold via marketing. And look, so there was the FSCA phoned me a year or so ago. There had been a WhatsApp thing, which apparently was me, and I was taking people's money. And with respect, the person doing it patently had it was not, I have a white Caucasian accent, folks. Like, this was not a white Caucasian accent. Just saying. So you think it's Simon Brown, and they were like, oh, but I'm like, look, it's just not me. And then eventually something, and they sent me, and I'm like, 1 second in, I'm like, you spot the voices. Mm-hmm. It's just,
I think it's easier for you because everybody's listened to your voice over the years.
This is true.
And so people have heard it on various platforms, various mediums.
Yeah.
But now that creates a new problem, Si, because now I can go and take some other AI technology, record your voice, put it over a video that has your face.
When we go to deepfake, it is completely and absolutely, that is now complete.
Anything is possible now.
And to the point, then I would need to do a WhatsApp call with you. Well, that can be deepfaked too.
And even then, why would I suddenly do a WhatsApp video call out of the blue with someone I've never met before? You know what I mean? But I think this is the challenge that we're now going to be facing with the deepfakes and with the rise of technology. Effectively, is how do you then verify yourself? Because now someone can create a deepfake, and unfortunately, your social media platform then has the burden of proof from a verification perspective sitting on Simon to say, you must verify that you are the legitimate Simon Brown. And
so this is
almost taking the side of the deepfake video over the side of the original person.
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing, which, again, my friend who's a cryptologist expert has been wondering with for decades. It's what Mark Shuttleworth solved with ultimately verifying individuals. Sam Altman's got the one world coin type thing where he wants to try and verify you with eyeballs.
Retinal scans, yes.
I'm not going to give my retinal scan to Sam Altman. But how do we verify people online? Mm-hmm. In the face-to-face world, it's
easy. Set up a meeting, go and do that. But
Absolutely.
You can't set up a meeting with every single person.
Correcto mundo.
So how do you protect yourself? How do you, again, your default point, your starting point, assume everything is a lie until otherwise proven.
Yeah.
That's a good safety point.
To the point, there's ways around it. So I have a vanity page, so you can go to my vanity page. My Twitter account links to that. That links to my vanity, and therefore you've got a bit of a loop there. But people don't. Some folks know about that, but a lot of folks don't know that I have a vanity page. If you look at my profile, it's there, but if there's a fake profile, it's not there, and you might not realize it's not there. You talk around number of followers. You can buy old Twitter accounts. My Twitter account is, 15, 16 years old. You can buy a 16-year-old Twitter account. You can load it with
the history. You can clean out the pictures.
Correct,
yeah,
exactly. So you can look through and maybe spot the problems, but if you're not expecting to be scammed.
Eye. Yeah.
So, the short answer is, particularly there's lots of aspects to this around relationships and everything else, but just be suspicious, and maximally more suspicious if someone's trying to sell you something. Whatever it is they're trying to sell you. Whether it be love or bubbles or
love or bubbles
or hot tips, just be suspicious.
Be suspicious, folks. We've lost our inquisitive nature. We are now too trusting as a populace, and that goes the world over. Be suspicious, and that's where we're going to leave that particular conversation. We're going to get into our stock pick. Probably going to be one of the easiest stock picks, and it is BlackBerry. Yeah, you see, the look on your face tells me you didn't believe they still existed.
Research in motion. BlackBerry.
Yes.
Yeah, they do exist. They do some auto car stuff.
They have results coming out tomorrow.
Ah.
Nobody's even paying attention, I don't think.
Okay. BlackBerry, what do they do?
I think they still make cell phones, at least in part.
Okay, hang on. I need to pull this up. They make cell phones.
I think so.
I don't know.
Pull
What
up.
do they do? No. What do
Pull
they
up
do?
pull up the share
provides
price.
intelligent security software and services to enterprise and governments worldwide.
Okay, there we
Secure
go.
communications. Oh, QNX. QNX is the car stuff and licensing. Huh? That's the segment. Okay.
$4 a share.
$4 a share. Enterprise File Sync, BlackBerry Secure Suite, a patented epileptic curve cryptography. I don't know what they do.
So, BlackBerry back in 2021 got as high as almost $30 around the
that's not-
pandemic. That's not high, considering in 2008, in May of 2008, probably around peak financial crisis, that share was trading at as high as $144, currently at $4.
Yeah, and that was just the 2008. The iPhone had come out the year before, and we didn't yet realize it was going to completely take its kneecaps out.
Well, to be fair, I don't think. I think one of the kneecaps was taken out by iPhone, but I also think Research in Motion and the team at BlackBerry took out their own other kneecap
Well, sure.
when their business model just didn't seem to make financial sense, and then they tried to change it, and the market just said, well, then no. I think BlackBerry is a prime example of what not listening to your consumer does for your brand.
And interesting. So, and it's compared. I mean, so this competitors is CrowdStrike. It's like, okay, so that's the space they put. Because I knew about
So that's
the Q&As.
that's the space they've now pivoted into. Is it a space that's even worthwhile looking at if we're looking at someone like a BlackBerry versus a CrowdStrike? Because we know where we stand on CrowdStrike. We know
Yeah.
that even after the hack or the shutdown that we saw, everybody still is a CrowdStrike client. We haven't really seen a major fallout
we have
from there,
not.
right?
We have not.
The question then becomes, is what do we do with BlackBerry? I, for one, have no use for a stock like BlackBerry in any portfolio. No offense to the guys at BlackBerry. I'm sure you guys do some really good work.
Sure.
I would put it in the avoid category because I can't really see what value I get out of the business.
I agreed. I just don't see why. They're doing some interesting stuff, but so are others. And,
So are other
and,
people.
it's like when you find a sector, go find yourself a really, really robust, strong growth sector, and then find the best 2 or 3 stocks in it and buy those at good prices. Don't go find the dog who's like lying sneaking in the corner because you haven't bought a pet insurance, so it's not going to go anywhere. Just like buy the winners. Does BlackBerry become a winner? Sure. Then I'll buy it at $40, but I've got some security of tenure.
That's it.
Right now.
Right now at $4, I can't see anything that's appealing about it. I can't see why someone would look at a stock like that. And even if you're saying, look, I want to get in on a good value stock at a really cheap price or whatever, there's so many other sectors with so many other good value stocks out there. You do your research, you get your vote in on whatever stock you have, as you said, whatever sector you believe in, whatever players are in that sector. For us, I don't see where we find the value here. But again, that's our opinion on that, because I feel like I have to stress this. I feel like we're having to now have conversations about saying that these opinions are not financial advice. There's disclaimers on this podcast for that very, very reason. And even with those disclaimers, people out there might not choose to listen to those disclaimers. Those are our opinions. It's Sai's opinion. It's my opinion. The Jimson opinion is not the universal opinion. It's not the global constant. Don't take it as that. It is just a thought on that. And that's why we're going to put it, we're in agreement where we're putting it.
It makes 1 cent free cash flow per share.
1 cent free cash flow per share.
$4 share.
I don't think we can run away fast enough from that. We're going to run away from that.
You managed to find one for the avoid.
There we go,
Proper.
right? Properly avoid that. That's where we're going to leave that particular conversation. That's where we're going to leave the show as well. But before we leave, we're going to leave you with an unfiltered opinion of the week, because that is exactly what we do. We love giving you these. They make us happy. We hope they make you happy. This week's unfiltered opinion is this. Millennials have lived through too damn much. There have been pandemics.
So
there have been wars. There's been the Y2K bug. I don't think I can fit the amount of
9/11,
things.
08,
The
US
Great
downgrades.
Recession.
I mean, just the whole. Yeah,
And
millennials
these are
have been-
considered black swan events. These are considered
Yeah.
once-in-a-lifetime events. We've spoken about this in the past.
Except they
How
have
many-
3 in a weekend.
That's it. How many once-in-a-lifetime events are we going to go through? What lies next? The rise of the internet, the rise of artificial intelligence, the rise of electrified vehicles. Everything's happened in one lifetime, effectively. People are tired, eh?
Yeah.
People are tired. That's the Unfiltered Opinion. That's the show. Please remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, give us some thoughts. Until next time, investing isn't hard. Just try it.